episode number 4, Pest Control Millionaire. One of my new friends that I just met recently out at Pest World 2022. He's from Minnesota. You said, what lake were you by, Matt? Lake Minnetonka, right?
Minnetonka, yeah.
Cool. He owns a multiple 7-figure business. They focus on wildlife and pest control. You got 2 kids and a wife, and it sounds like there's a new baby on the way, if I'm correct. Is it December, January?
December 20th. We got a couple weeks here, and my wife and I will be playing zone defense against the kids. So
sweet, and then
not the one I want anymore.
And then you're trying to get to Florida with the baby. Is that correct? In January?
Yep, I'll be down there at Seth's event in Florida. My mother lives down there too. Pretty conveniently timed. Hope Seth did that just for me, but probably didn't.
Probably didn't. The name of your company is Abracadabra Environmental Services. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to start right there. Was that name something that you chose, or was that something that you, when you got the business, had already had the name, or did you change it? What does that look like?
So, just to get right to it, that's one of the few awesome parts about my business that doesn't have me behind it. So my wife and her sisters kind of came up with that. My father-in-law was starting the company back in early 2000s. They were trying to get at the front of the yellow pages, right? They're trying to be like A, B, and it worked then, but it's actually a pretty witty name. And when you look at like the origins of the name, it's kind of powerful. Abracadabra means I create as I speak. So it tied into the whole magic side of things. Like words are powerful, right? So like the words that you say, way back when, like that would literally be magic. And so abracadabra, alakazam, all those type of things, like those are, now they're magic words, but in general, that word has like a really deep meaning. I don't get into this part with a lot of people.
Cool.
I kind of super high level, but like the word tie a lot to like just who I am as a person, and like I believe in speaking things into existence and kind of creating the world around you through your thoughts and actions and so
that's really awesome, man.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that. But I did know that your father-in-law started the business, and I didn't know the exact years, like 2000 some. Take us back. Obviously, you met your wife. I don't know if you got married first or if you started working there first and met her through it.
Good question, Jonas. So I've known my wife since I was 8. I've been dating her since I was 15. So I've been with her now longer than I haven't been with her. And I remember way back when, because she was my neighbor growing up, like I saw an old pest control vehicle that my father-in-law used to be in the driveway of their home. And then all of a sudden one day it switched and was a new name and same colors. Everything looked pretty much identical, same truck, everything, just a different name. So I've literally seen the company grow from its beginnings, which is pretty special. A lot of people who have acquired a business don't really get to see that. Yeah. Even though it was from a distance, I did get to kind of be there for the whole journey until after finishing up college, or in my last semester of college, I had a lot of free time because I was playing baseball and I only had half a credit left of class, which equated to 1 hour of class a week. So a lot of free time on my hands. And that's when I really started working actually in the pest control industry and with my father-in-law. Originally just to try to get in front of my student loans, but I just fell in love with it and the customer service side of things. I saw a major upside in the recurring revenue associated with it. And that part, as we've gone down the road, I didn't even realize how big it could have been way back when, compared to like how I look at recurring revenue nowadays. So, took it over, officially took ownership over in April 1st of 2017. It was just my father-in-law and I at that point. Now we're at about 20 some employees. My father-in-law and I kind of parted ways like 6 months after the transition. And really, he set me up for a lot of success with the groundwork he had laid for the company. And I just kind of took it and ran with it. Just went through a little rebrand now. So logos refreshed, all that kind of stuff. But every other part of the business has really changed in the last 5 years, since I kind of took over.
Since you brought up the whole acquisition part of it, what sparked the interest of either wanting to buy it, or what sparked the interest of him wanting to sell? Which way did it go?
That's a really good question. So, so my wife and I found out we were pregnant with my son, and I didn't I was kind of had a carrot that was in front of me, like, hey, if you grow this, this will be yours. If you do, this is a great opportunity for you. But I didn't really know when that was going to be. So I kind of just forced my will and kind of made it happen. It was almost like an ultimatum. Like I just knew I needed to be the one writing the story that for my family. I wasn't going to let somebody else, even if it is my father-in-law, I wasn't going to let that person be in control of the outcome that myself and my family would have. So, kind of gave him a little bit of an ultimatum at that point. One of the hardest conversations that I've ever had, but it was fruitful. We put it all down on paper. Like any acquisition or working with anybody in any type of business transaction, like you got to document things. You're going to end up on two sides of the fence. And it's not worth it, especially when you're with family or anybody like that. So that was something I kind of failed at originally, and just took my father-in-law's word for it and worked my ass off really for 2.5 years before I was like, hold on, I'm doing all this, but I didn't have ownership or even wasn't in charge of the checkbook even at that point. So right. Anyway, I learned a lot through those early years. And then really once I could make all those decisions, then I was just putting the cart in front of the horse and trying to catch up,
For sure. What at that time, what services did they offer when you took over?
Pretty much exclusively structural pest control. So it was a lot of one-time services, very few recurring. Probably the book of business I bought for recurring was I don't know, 10 grand or 12 grand, something like that. Wasn't big. And so ants, mice, spiders, sting insects, that was pretty much the core. I added mosquito and tick after that. I added some green treatments for the docks around Lake Minnetonka. It's a pretty high-end area with really big docks and a lot of flying insects. So really dove into the organic side of pest control treatment. And I understand that at a really high level now. And then probably the biggest thing we've added, though, has been our wildlife division. That's allowed us to survive during the cold weather months up here in the Midwest. It gets pretty cold, and it stays that way for a long time. And the first couple of years, or the first year I owned the business, it was a bigger deal then because I was the owner, and I needed to figure out how am I going to grow this business 12 months out of the year, not just 6 or 7. So just dove into the wildlife, and I'm blessed to be a quick learner, and I implement pretty quickly. I don't spend a lot of time just going around in the learning process. I'm a learning by doing, and that worked for my benefit. Got in a lot of national wildlife control operator training courses, and just consumed as much technical knowledge as I could on that to elevate myself to the level of an expert and be able to not only do it for my company and be successful there, but also like help quite a few other operators learn and implement it to support their businesses in kind of those colder weather months, or complement their business and be another revenue stream for them. So that the wildlife's probably where we really differentiate ourselves from most other pest control companies. We got a lot of ladders, we got a lot of tools, and very, very different business model altogether. So it's a big learning curve, but it's a lot of fun and good for us up here.
For sure. So you said and I know this from talking to you over the last couple of weeks, but you're super technical on the wildlife side and on the service side. How did you transition that from being in the service so much to becoming the person you need to be to run the company? Was that a hard transition for you? Because a lot of people, let's be honest, they can't get out of that mindset of being a technician to get to where they actually run the company. So being that you're so technical, how was that transition for you?
It was hard. So that's a really good question. Kind of a loaded question, to be honest. But so
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, you came prepared. So I started working with Seth Garber, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago, and I was full on in the business when I started working with him. I can sell ice to Eskimo. I'm pretty high level when it comes to sales, and that was kind of the thing that was holding me back. Was I didn't want to give that up because like I knew I was a better salesman, and Seth said something to me that really kind of just was the kick in the rear end that I needed. He said, as long as you're out there selling $50,000 or $60,000 a month, you'll never have 10 guys out there doing that. And that was like, for whatever reason, it just really resonated with me, and kind of pissed me off enough to like just decide, like, I think it was that same conversation. I was like, all right, well, let's set a day then, otherwise it's never going to happen. So we just put November 1st of, was that 2020? I was going to be out of the field, and then we just made it happen. Like, literally had to take my truck away, give it to somebody else, and like, I didn't know what to do for the first couple months, really. It was pretty brutal. So the sales is where I was elite, but like really I had to shift from me doing it to now teaching people how to do it.
Yeah.
Built out some playbooks. Like I didn't know what to do with my time for the first little bit. It was like the change of your day to day is such a massive learning curve for like your own like rhythms and like what you do in the morning. Even instead of running out to your first job, it's like you go to an office and it's like that chaos that used to be there all the time isn't there. You're like looking for it somewhere,
for
right?
Sure.
And like for me, like I'm probably best when I have a lot of stuff going on, because then I'm not like over engineering those things. I'm just like moving the needle on it.
Yeah.
My brain just kind of works really, really quickly. So juggling things is kind of a strength and a weakness that I have. Sometimes I don't get them all the way to the finish line, but
for sure,
most people ever would.
Yeah, we get it there 80%, and the other people probably won't even notice the other 20% anyway, right? But you brought up a couple of really good topics, though. Like, how important and impactful was getting out of the truck for you for your business, though? Again, that's where most people get stuck. They get stuck at that $250,000-$300,000 in revenue because they're stuck in the truck, and they may have one other tech, but they can't oversee them really. But yeah, explain that part.
So for me, like it impacted in a few different ways. So like obviously the revenue was felt because then there was more strategy behind it, but probably a more powerful and like a deeper level was like at one point, I remember this like vividly. I was outside the shop talking with, on the phone with Seth, I think, and it was just like I didn't have a gajillion things on my brain to juggle. So there was like this immense amount of peace that I had that I I didn't have before, because I was juggling sales plus trying to grow a company, and there just wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough mental energy.
You were wearing too many hats, right?
So that ability to actually not have to feel that way, for my life was amazing, for my marriage, for my relationship with my kids, that. Changed my life, really. To be honest. Now, I've been able to grow and get better at leading people and building teams and really get to impact people in a way that's a lot more powerful than their mouse problem or their squirrel problem. Not that there's something wrong with that, but I've been able to find that what really drives me is creating opportunity for other people and seeing them go get it, right? But they don't. Sometimes people don't see the opportunity until you put it in their face.
Yeah.
Or you open that door for them.
And I think another topic along that line is getting 1,000-foot view of your company, looking down where a crow sees, and when you're in the thick of things and stuck in the weeds, you don't notice all the nuances that you could be missing. And if you had 1,000-foot view over things, so oh man, I really need to fix this part of my business, or I really need to fix this part of my business. When you're stuck in the weeds, you don't get that opportunity. You don't think like that. So I'm glad that someone forced you out of it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's I knew it needed to happen, right? It was just that how I was valuing my time. I was looking at it on a lens of a ROI lens. I put X amount of time in, I get this many dollars out. But what I've learned that if I'm doing those direct ROI things, I can't do big things that move the needle massively forward. Connecting with people that have hundreds and hundreds of properties rather than that one property owner, right?
Sure.
So just it helped me think bigger, really.
Yeah. So instead of doing the $100 an hour tasks, you're going to focus on the $500 to $1,000 or $5,000 an hour tasks.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're stuck in the weeds, you don't see those kind of things. So you just said yourself, you have a $100 an hour client here and you got a $5,000 an hour client here. They both take the same amount of time to close and energy. Why not focus your time on the $5,000 deal rather than the $100 deal?
It's a high leverage activity, right? Because the time that we all have is pretty finite. Everyone gets the same amount of time, right? So how come everyone doesn't move the needle forward the fastest? Is because people spend time digging around on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, rather than going out there and doing something well, first of all, just doing something, right? You can't turn a parked car, right? It's got to be going somewhere. Yeah. So once you start creating movement and action, then the opportunities kind of just happen, right? Sometimes people just get caught in wanting it to be too perfect, and it's really limiting for people's ability to grow. So
and most people don't even start a business because they're waiting for it to be perfect. I'll wait till this time, or I'm going to do this first, and I'm going to get up to this point. And no, just I always say, just you get it rolling, right? You move it along 80%. You scale. Something's going to break, you go back and fix it. Fix what's broken, scale, go back and fix it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Here's a prime example. When I was young and I was starting a business and I was running a lawn care company, I'd be mowing lawns, going crazy. But at the end of the day, I would go grab their trash can at the end of the driveway, and I'd pull it up thinking that I was doing them a favor. And what I did is actually hurt myself, because I was going above 100%. Where it took me a quarter of the time to do the same job. They would have never even noticed the other 80%. Not one person has ever thanked me for that. Then I also trained them that I was going to do that. So once my guys followed me, and then they went and did the job, and they didn't pull up, what the hell? You never thanked me before, but now at the same time, you're they're mad that the next person didn't do it.
Exactly.
One of the things that I found super interesting when we were out in Boston with you was you had your sister-in-law with you. Am I right?
Sister-in-law, yeah.
And she was there with you, and she was your executive assistant. That was pretty neat. The way I operate, I probably need one, but I have a couple of them. But how impactful has that been for you?
It's been massive, right? it allows me to be in more places than one.
Yeah.
And allows me to kind of have a pulse on things at, like, within the company when I'm not there. Now, I still have a lot to learn as far as all that goes. It's not like it's all rainbows and unicorns once you get an assistant, right? Like, working with your assistant, like making sure that they understand what's expected of them and how your day-to-day goes, is critical for their success as an employee, right? So we've learned through some of those processes together, but just like getting stuff done at the rate that I like hold myself to, because like my brain's moving like really, 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 really fast. And in order for me to move the business at that same speed, all the ideas that I have to get farther than 50% of the way, right? They have to actually get seen through, and that's what really helps me is she kind of helps me push it all the way across the finish line, and it really helps me not feel frustrated with myself, because I think every idea I have is a gold mine, right? But they're not all that good. But sometimes you got to try it before you even know that, and if it takes a year to get an idea across the finish line, now you're invested into something that might not even work if you haven't tried it yet. So trying, like, getting it implemented is like probably where she helps me out the most. Is she takes some of the stuff that I've created and she helps me communicate it with the rest of my team, and like just things that must get done in a business our size that there's not a lot of people that can take on that responsibility. Like, she helps me do stuff like that too. So when you're in a growing company, positions evolve a lot, and her position, because she's so close to me, is going to be one of those that it's going to have a lot of like flexing, and it creates a lot of opportunity for her to learn and progress herself as a professional though as well. And like, the fact that she's my family member is just like another bonus for me. I love seeing people be successful, but when they're related to you, it's got like a deeper connection too, you know?
For sure.
So,
and if I remember right, my memory is correct, which tell me if I'm wrong, I think she had 5 kids of her own, so she's busy already.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on.
Yeah. So does she have to work from the office every day? Can she actually help you do all that stuff from home?
In that role where we're currently at, like, we need her in the office a majority of the time, just because that's kind of where our company's at right now. But like, she works from home some days, and like a big part of how I run Abra is like understanding that Abra is only a part of those people's lives. There's more to their life than the 40 hours a week they put in.
Yeah.
And the rest of the week, the rest of their life is really the stuff that's actually important to them. And it's like, when you honor that and you realize that, and maybe like bend in order to not break, sometimes you build an immense amount of trust with people, that allows for big growth over time. So she can work from home certain days, but really, like, in order for us to have the most impact, like having her in the meetings, like with my team when I'm not there, or going to meet somebody else that runs like a home inspection company or something like that, like, she can help me be like a point of contact and me not actually have to,
for sure,
take my time to do that.
So do you think it's harder or easier? Maybe I should rephrase this. Do you think it's easier to run a smaller company or easier to run a bigger company?
It depends how you define easy. Easy. So for me, it's easier to run a bigger company because I'm really good with people. And I excel in motivating people and getting them all pointed in one direction, and showing them a vision to start marching forwards. Mm-hmm. For other people, especially people like in the industry we are, they're not always the biggest people. They're not always really like, they can be really good at just working with their hands, and like they enjoy that, and that's what kind of is easy for them, right? So if it's easy for them to interact with the customer and do that, and have maybe one or two guys and manage a pretty small workforce, like you can make a lot of money in pest control and not be over $1 million.
Yeah.
Like I know some really, really wealthy operators at between 600 and 900, and they've just done it, but they've kind of lived there for a while.
But I think that's the sweet spot, right? Like if you're going to grow or decide not to grow, it doesn't matter which one you choose, but if it's not to grow and you want to sit in a sweet spot, the sweet spot is going to be from 700 to 900,000 roughly in revenue.
Yeah. Or you got to blow through it. And
yeah. I mean, but that is 100% sweet spot, and you're going to see, 40, 50% margins at that spot because you don't have zero overhead or little overhead. You're going to have some, but very little. But once you start scaling past that, and you start to bring in managers and all the overhead infrastructure, that's when you see the margins go down, and that's where people get stuck again.
Because they measure their success year over year and tax season over tax season,
right,
rather than a 5 to 10 year
right
term, right? Like for me, I'm so young. I could bust my butt for the next 5 years, and it could still completely blow up in my face. And I'm 37 at that point. I have life in front of me to do something else, right? And then the business isn't going to do that, but people set goals, right? But I don't think it's like such a firm thing in their head that it's unwavering, right? Like, it doesn't matter how many people tell them they can't do that, they're still going to do it. Like, that's how I am when I set goals. It's like, yep, decisions made, I'm going that way until I die, pretty much. Or until I prove to myself that I can't do that, and I make that decision. Nobody else is going to do that. Where, like, some people set goals and they don't actually have that conviction in them, right? They set goals because they think they're supposed to, and it'd be great to do that, but then when rubber meets the road, you gotta grind, you gotta work really hard, do crap you don't like to do, then they change their goals, and they rethink it. There's no part of me that is slowing down at any point. So,
and I think that's kind of why we connected, right? We kind of think the same way.
Put on the gas pedal, and we'll figure it out as we go.
For sure. So the people that, for those guys that are in the truck that are listening to this, that might be starting out, they got 2 or 3 technicians, but they want to grow their company, and maybe they don't want to get out of the field. What would you tell those guys that are not good with people? What would you say to those guys to help them still grow their company?
I'd probably take a step back even farther than that and say, what's your why? Why are you doing it? If something starts with a why of making money, you can come up with a lot of things to do that, right? But when it gets hard, then, and that was your why, people give up.
For sure.
When the why's deeper, bigger than that, and then you set your goal because you understand where what's driving you, like me, creating opportunity and touching as many lives as possible. So clear to me that anything that's grow my company and allow me to accomplish that, the decision's already made when I get there. Because does it get me closer to that or not? If it does, sweet, let's do it. If it doesn't, well, let's not do it. And then you don't get caught in this agonizing over decisions and stuff like that. So really clarifying that, I think, is so important for people. And it's something I was working really hard for a while just because I liked doing it, and I didn't actually have that defined. And once I defined it to myself, put it down in words, and started to really feel it, then it just makes things easier, right? Some people's why is to have a super balanced work home life and make X amount of dollars a year and be able to take vacations when they want and not have a high level of stress. That's great. Absolutely. And you can get there a lot of different ways, right? But you got to define it for yourself and not just say, yeah, I want to grow a $5 million pest control company because you got a couple buddies that are doing that and it sounds like a good deal. Like that's the type of stuff that fizzles out, and people like the resilience that you need to be a business owner is you got to fall down 100 times and get up 101. You know, like you just got to keep going after it and have fun while you're doing it too. I think people are too hard on themselves. Like it's one thing that I do to myself that it hindered me for a lot, and it did help me like grow through some things. But you can't change the past; you can just learn from it. So beating yourself up about crap that you can't change doesn't do anybody any good. Yeah.
You brought it's awesome. It's fire, dude. I love it. One of the things that you talked about was Seth. You said you hired Seth like 2 years ago. Was that your first mentor?
My dad was my first mentor. My dad, my grandfather. I've had a lot of mentors in my life, but within the pest control industry, I sought him out because I didn't want to have to teach a bit like a traction coach or whatever. I didn't want to have to teach them my industry. I wanted somebody that has kind of trod through that and done some of those things, so that it's more than just a accountability coach. It's like I've done this before and I can help you, you know. And in my local area, I didn't have a lot of like people aren't really open to networking, sharing different things, and like working with each other. Everyone kind of worked against each other, and I hated it. So when I got connected with Seth, he was the first one that I probably really just had structured time dedicated to like my personal growth, but also my company's growth. So having a coach, some type of outside person, whoever it is, like Seth is great. He works well for me, but he might not work for other people, right? But if there is somebody that can help you think through things or just be a sounding board, like being a business owner is a freaking lonely island to be on sometimes. And for a while, when I was really, really young and just getting started, I didn't have a lot of friends that could have conversations with me about the same stuff. So, like, being a business owner, you got to realize you're kind of a freaking unicorn. And you can't talk about a lot of stuff with your friends because they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they don't get it.
So now I just have a network of incredibly successful business owners in the pest and wildlife industries, but also other industries that there's a extreme amount of intent behind it that I put into like getting in front of people that are big thinkers and that they're doers of crap, right? They're not just like talkers. There's a lot of talks cheap, takes money to buy whiskey. That's what my grandpa used to always say to my brothers and I. And like, it's true. Like a lot of people talk, a lot of people want to do things, a lot of people have dreams, but while people are doing that, there's that guy over there on the side where he's actually getting after it and getting crap done. He doesn't have time to talk about it. That's a guy I want to hang out with.
For sure. And that's one of the notes that I had on here. When we met out there, we had talked a little bit and you're like, yeah, I have a really small circle and I don't let very many people in.
Yeah.
And so then you just talked about that again. Like the only people that you let in your circle are people who are roughly, at your same level or way ahead of you and are big thinkers that want to move at the same pace. Seems like that's who you surrounded yourself with. So now you brought it up, I want to just say that, yeah, I actually had that noted.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting place to be. Like I've actually realized how uncomfortable I make people when I talk, because I don't stop talking about business, right? So like when I'm around people that don't talk that way, like there's this perception of like almost a lack of humbleness or haughtiness, and that's not who I am. It's just like I'm talking about my business because I'm
passion.
Trying to figure this thing out at work. So when I get back to work on Monday, like we can, and everyone else is trying to crack another beer and hang out, So it's just like I'll crack a beer and hang out, but like let's talk about some cool shit. Like let's not. I don't know. I like to move the needle. I like to do stuff, and you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, man. So like, I don't want to swim with the fish. I want to fly with the eagles.
So it's so cliche that you said that, but the older that I've gotten, Matt, is like I can't explain that much. Like I can't even just say like how much that has actually meant to me in my life, and how much as I've gotten older, how I realized it. Like, look at your friends that you had in the past, or people they went to high school with, who had everything possibly going them for them something in their life. Like they are going to be like top person in your class or doing whatever, and they just go hang out with the wrong people, and they just go down the wrong road, right? And like I've seen some super athletes that were friends, and they just after high school, like they haven't done anything since then. And it is because they got around the wrong circle, they went down the wrong path, and they had wrong guidance. So I couldn't agree with that more. Like even like good looking guys and good looking girls, like just to see what they do and the people they surround themselves with. I mean, I've heard this thing forever. Like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. When I was young, I was like, whatever, didn't really think much through it. But then now that you get older, like
you're smarter than everybody when you're
I'm
younger.
like, man, is that so true? And that makes you think like, who do I spend the time with? And like, look at your surroundings. It's pretty impactful.
It's probably this like the single most impactful thing that I've done is just being intentional with the people who I put myself around. I put my family around. Like you never know like what can come from those things, but when you're putting yourself around really small-minded people that are just talking about the weather and like things like that, like you can only get so far with that. There's not a lot of like epiphanies or light bulbs that happen in those types of circles. It's
let me ask you this then. Do you have a hard time hanging out with even certain family members or friends that it's really small talk? Do you struggle with that? I know I do.
I just don't really like if I'm just meeting you, like I can small talk with the best of them because I'm really good at making people feel comfortable. But once I've known you for any period of time, like my dad just tells me that I'm dense and like I can't read the room and people don't want to go as deep as I want to go. But like I'm trying to go that deep and then deeper just because like it's just it's worth it, like talking to the Twins did or how like the Vikings are like that's just so lame to me. And completely outside of my control as well. So like I'm big into talking about things that are within my circle of influence and also like things that are completely different than what I currently believe or think. And I love entertaining ideas like that and seeing if there's any small little tidbit of a
truth
stand or a position on an argument that I can learn from or not. But like Aristotle has a quote like it's the mark of an intelligent man to be able to entertain an idea and not accept it, something along those lines, right? So like it's so funny how quickly people shoot down opposing ideas nowadays and don't even like spend time to think about it and let their brain work on it because they're like scared to change like this thing that they're so attached to. I just love learning so much, so I can take both sides of an argument. It just depends which one you want me to be on, but I'll have a good argument on either one because I can get behind it, and that's kind of why I'm good at sales too, is because I can wordsmith some stuff up. But just people don't like thinking. They want it to be easy, and thinking is really hard.
Yeah.
Especially when it's growth minded, because when you're growing, you're changing. And when you're changing, you're leaving something that you used to have an attachment to on some level. And that's so uncomfortable for people, like so uncomfortable, very like stressful, right? But the thing about stress, Jonas, is there's two kinds of stress. There's de-stress or breakdown of things, and then there's eustress or like a growth-oriented stress. Maybe I'm just dumb enough to trick myself into believing like every amount of stress I have is that like going to the weight room stress like that eustress, like building you up to a higher level. So like stress is this type of alchemy where I just take stress and I allow that to like feed me to like bust through it type of thing rather than break me down. Does that make sense?
It sure does. Thanks again for letting me in your circle. I appreciate it. It's been fun the last couple weeks.
Yeah. Not done yet. Just getting started.
I know. But what made you pull the trigger on paying for a coach? Like, because I know it's not cheap. It's pretty expensive. And a lot of people aren't willing to spend the money. But what made you just like, okay, I got to do this?
I didn't know what to do next. And I had a lot of people that were committed to me, and I owed it to them to, like, I just knew I needed to do something different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think that my coach was going to do this stuff for me, but I knew that I needed new stimuli, new data input in order for the train of thought I had to be like shook up and evolve. Otherwise, it would have taken me a lot of time to learn some of the things that so the brain just craves information. If I'm not getting it coming in, I kind of become stagnant in my thought processes and like my ability to solve the problems that come up to me. But like when I'm reading books and listening to podcasts and having like really good conversations with people, like you put something new into the equation, right? So now your brain has a new piece of info to synapse off of and connect a dot that you didn't have before. And I think that like that's a super powerful thing. I'd rather spend time learning and growing my knowledge base than like on TikTok or Netflix or something like that, you know.
For
like
sure.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up, like I see so you're starting to do a lot of videos, like on platforms, social media, YouTube, you name it. You're using video to sell your services. Is that something new to you? Something you've always wanted to do? What's your plan with that, and how much does it impact the business itself? For all the people that maybe not do it, that should be doing it. You and I do a lot. Let's talk about it.
So what I think I am pretty good at is like understanding like a consumer and like finding where their attention is, right? Because pest control, we're in a market where people come find us when they have an issue, right?
Yep.
So unless you're getting in front of them some other way, they're not going to know who you are when they enter the market to buy if you haven't already introduced yourself to them. So I've been doing video like heavy since I bought the company, pretty much like, and it's one of the things that's differentiated us from all those other guys that all look the same, do the same thing, have the same trucks, same uniforms, just different companies.
They're a commodity, right?
Yeah, I like that's why I've kind of just intentionally done things differently from the beginning, so that it's like it's a reason for somebody's brain to like have their attention caught, right? If my truck looks like the same guy's truck who does a different company, and now we're the same company, even though that me thinking about or them thinking about me as a working guy or whoever it is, like that doesn't help my company. Like I need them to think about me as me and my company, and be okay with standing out and grabbing attention. A lot of people don't want to stand out because they're like, like I don't know if it's like they don't want to be caught for the things they're doing wrong, or they just don't like that attention. But like marketing, a lot of it, the successful stuff is doing something that's different. Like,
yeah, my mentor always told me that the best product doesn't win; it's the best known product that wins.
That's a good one.
So we did the same thing. Like we wanted to be different. Like we have pink vehicles. Why?
Yeah.
There it was planned. Like they say that 1% of all vehicles are pink. So if they see like 2 pink cars driving down New York City over 2 years, they think, man, they probably have like 50 trucks. We see them everywhere. And it's not because they see them everywhere. It's just because they see the same car, same pink car. They're attracted to it. So that's just how we started. Like, people see your trucks everywhere. We had like 1 or 2 when we opened our new office, and then now we have 25 trucks. So, and that's just how it goes, Like, but it was all there from the very beginning. Like it was well thought out, being a little bit different.
Can I ask you something? So have you ever heard of the idea of like imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Like, what's your understanding of that? And like, did you ever feel like you had that at any point as you're growing your business?
No, again, maybe I'm just too dumb too. I don't know. I just didn't.
Okay.
So no.
I was talking with somebody earlier, and that was something they like said about themselves, and I had to Google it. I didn't even really know what it was.
Yeah. But, do you feel like you have, if you're looking back on it?
I think imposter syndrome is just another way to say like a lack of confidence in what you're doing.
For sure.
And or maybe like an imbalance in how much other people trust you to do what you do versus how much you trust you to do what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from an extremely deep understanding on the technical side of things. Like when you don't know the technical, like for instance, the guy I'm talking about is a dude that does a lot of my videos, and his company's grown pretty quickly. But like, he doesn't think he's like good enough. I'm like, dude, you're putting freaking awesome videos. So like, I don't know what like who's putting this in your head. Like it's just super funny that the high performers like kind of can set themselves up for failure because they like get in their own way and they create those stumbling blocks sometimes.
I think that's 99% of the population. They're so worried about what everyone else thinks about you, or about them. They're afraid to do something wrong, and they're just so afraid, and they think that all the people are looking at them and talking about them. No one's talking about you. No one cares. Just go do your thing.
Yeah. Everyone else has their own thing going on.
Yeah, and I said this before, but like, the haters aren't going to come from the people that are in front of you or even at the same level. It's going to be people who aren't doing anything that are going to hate on you. Well, who cares? What are they doing anyway? Nothing.
Yeah, I don't have any time for...
Right.
The time that we all have is the same amount. It's like, what do we focus on in that time that we're given? And I choose to be really intentional to focus on things that make me good and help me grow. Other people like to go the opposite direction.
For sure. So since we're on the marketing thing, and with like Google ads being extremely expensive, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think they're going to get cheaper for us, and Facebook ads and things. Besides the digital marketing, do you guys do anything outside of that to help grow the company?
I'm a prolific networker, being that I'm one of only a few Caucasian males with dreadlocks down to their belt line. I kind of comes to the networking circles I'm in.
Yeah.
And so that's worked out for me. But like I learn really well in one-on-one type of situations, not only about like the other person's business, but like when I'm around a subject matter expert and I can ask a question that's answered at an expert level, now I can learn in a more progressive way than trying to sift through information on Google or something like that. Like, so the networking that I do, it's hard to measure like direct ROI sometimes, yeah. But the relationships, which is really what business is building relationships. Like when you build there, and sometimes it takes time, but like when you start with relationships and you just kind of pour into those and build trust and value for those people, like over time, like really cool stuff could happen, right? But building trust is not a thing, especially when it comes to business and somebody telling their grandma or their mom or dad about you, and that now that person who referred you has to really trust that you're not going to go screw that up because it's mom and dad's house or whatever. Like that, like just the ability to build relationships, something I got from my parents, is really paid out for me in a bigger way than I probably can put to words, really, or numbers for that matter. Certain doors get open just because I've been at a BNI where I met somebody and they introduced me to somebody else, and boom, that's a huge account for us.
Yeah. And you and I talked about this yesterday morning. This is about BNI, and it cost a couple $100, $500-$600 to get into. But how much money have you made from BNI alone? Like, is it worth it?
Yeah, like
But a lot of people don't know about it, so it's a good topic to bring up, especially on this channel. You know, a lot of new guys will be watching this. People with smaller companies.
It's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes with like rules that they have, but the platform that creates for small business owners to grow and create community around business, which is not something that happens a lot, but it's BNI is one of those platforms. I think I'm in the biggest BNI in the country. Like we have
it was impressive.
Or something like that. And so like we can really do some big stuff in a group like that. But I haven't always been in a group like that. I've been in smaller groups, and those have sometimes been like more beneficial, like hour for hour, depending on what period of time you look at, right? If it's a 3-month period, like one group I was in, like that was pretty much 50% of my growth was coming from BNI when I first started, because it's really easy to get referrals for what we do. Like it's very, very easy. And then it can just get bigger than that if you commit to it, right? It's just like anything else. You're going to get out what you put in. So if you don't put a lot in, you can expect a lot out. And like, I love it, man. I was born to build businesses and like motivate and like build leaders, you know, like that's just what I'm here to do. I think so.
So for the young guys or people that just start out in business that want to grow their company, you know, they want to scale it pretty fast. We just talked about, you know, social media ads. We talked about BNI network. What is something else that you would recommend to those guys to help?
Like an actual like go do something.
Yeah, like what's something that they can do to help grow their business?
Just start putting content out on social media, Google My Business, like the real easy stuff. If you're out there and you're doing stuff, like we do wildlife, so we take hundreds of pictures every day, right? Like that's all content that I can use and repurpose if I do that, right? Or I can not even think about that and just let it sit there and not like get the most juice out of the squeeze, right? Yeah. So people think pest control is interesting sometimes, like as not interesting as I think it is. Like other people will stop it and watch videos if it comes across their feed. So like just start doing something, right? And like create consistency with whatever it might be. If it's I'm gonna put 3 pieces of content out a week on my social media platform. Okay, then that's awesome. Like you gotta start somewhere, right? And like that, like the video and like photo stuff is like really, really easy for us to do when we have a lot of text, as long as you can kind of reverse engineer it from the field to there. When you're the only guy or you got 2 guys, it's really easy to just like have that app on your phone and upload a picture with a whole bunch of mouse droppings or a woodpecker hole or whatever.
And people think that it has to be this big elaborate thing. Like you have a cell phone in your hand. That's gonna, like, that one cell phone can make you hundreds of thousands of dollars just by posting content. And it doesn't cost you anything other than your cell phone bill and a little bit of time.
Exactly.
You mentioned
get in their own way.
Yeah, you mentioned something really good that a lot of people don't know about. Maybe they do these days, but even when I started, but I still see a lot of people without a Google My Business. Like that's the first place you should start, right? Like that's like square one.
Yeah, it's a little micro social platform in and of itself. Like you don't even have to have a website. You can have Google My Business and start getting reviews and start putting images out there. And as you do that, Google actually starts to prefer you because they see that you're actively investing into that, right? So
you just said reviews. How important are those to your business?
I think it's one of the key things, not only in my market, but most markets out there, for why people make decisions.
Absolutely.
So like we leverage the quantity and quality of reviews that we have in a lot of our marketing, because it's a huge determining factor for new customers in selecting a service provider. It's somebody else's previous experience with that business, right? and that just goes to trust. Like they trust Sally Johnson, they never met Sally before, but because she gave a 5-star review and wrote 150 words or whatever, like they're gonna sign up for pest control, and we're gonna have them for 7.5 years, whatever the heck it is. Like it's the trust is building trust with people is like the most important thing in business.
And we could probably talk about reviews all day long, but obviously we're not perfect, right? And people are afraid to like go ask for reviews because they don't want to get a bad one. We all get them. We're not perfect, but I think it's how you handle the bad review, right? Whether you go back out there and fix the job because they're going to anyway, or just make sure that it's taken care of. How do you guys handle it at Abracadabra if you get a bad review?
So we're all about customer service, like going the extra mile, doing that stuff. Like we hope, like in the journey of being a customer with us, that like rather than just going to a review platform and leaving it there, that you'll give us the opportunity to correct something prior to that, right? But the few times it has happened, like I just call that person and like solve it. Like I'm so like thanks for bringing this to our attention. So you give me and my young team an opportunity to learn this. We're a young company. We're not perfect, but this, like, thank you for allowing us to get better. Like that kind of shuts down a lot of what people are afraid of when they get those reviews. The mad customer, right? Because people don't want to disappoint and don't like altercation. But like if you come at people with like I did mess up, like we could have done this better, and now we're talking about it. So like how do I make sure no other customer ever has that? Get them involved in like helping you get better. People, at least in the Midwest, like it's kind of like a get out of jail free card almost. And like just the fact that you're giving them the time to let them like be heard, right? People just want to know that they're important. They want to feel that. If they don't feel that, then it's really easy for them to find another service provider that doesn't leave them with that taste in their mouth.
Yeah, like especially if you're growing extremely fast, you're just going to get them because they're hiccups. But you know how many times that we've went back there and fixed things and they left us a bad review without telling them? We just went back there. Obviously, we called them, but we didn't ask them to like overturn the review. We just said, thanks, we'll work on getting better, like you said. But after we went back and handled their problem, they would change it without us even asking. It's how you handle it after the negative review.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect, man. Like we can't expect to not be fallible. And I talk to my people about this all the time. Like if we're not failing, we're not trying hard enough, right? Because failure allows
fast, right?
Yeah, you have to. And if you're gonna do that, you have to like intentionally like know that it's okay for that failure and that it's not a bad thing. It's actually opportunity. It's something that allows you to like be a stepping stone. If you choose to look at it that way, or you can like blame it all on the customer and run in circles and get really upset and like actually do nothing to help your business, or solve that customer's problem. So it's like a double, like that concept just makes no sense to me. So we don't even spend time talking about stuff like that. We just like, we solve the problem and then we talk about what we could have done to have not had a problem.
Yeah.
And that's things better. So
I love that. We brought up goals a little bit earlier, so I wrote it down for all like the people who want to try to get through goals, how to write goals, how to attack their goals. What's your method of madness behind your goals and goal setting?
So I think that people kind of get out of hand and set too many goals for themselves. And there's too many things to keep track of, so you can't focus on any of them. So kind of like getting down to like the smallest amount of goals that you can focus on and like really attain your big picture why, and move in that direction. So for me, I'm a major Napoleon Hill enthusiast. I don't know like how I even got introduced to it, but I've just consumed so many of his books, multiple times each one. And like the process of like how things are created twice, right? They're created first like in your brain, and then after that created in real life, right? So that first creation, like we get to be in charge of technically. So like pretty much say like how it's going to be, and then I work my ass off to make sure that happens. And I think you're probably pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
So like just like that, like back to the conviction, right? Like you're so like bought into your own, like you drank your own Kool-Aid, you know, like that's like nobody's gonna like jar you. And like so I've kind of always been that way. Like my dad tells a story when I was in third grade, like I was gonna be an NBA player, right? And my dad was like, he was like really serious with me after a game. I had like 20 points or something. He's like, you know how many basketball players there are out there? And he like kind of did the math for me. There's this many high school players. There's this many states. There's this many D1 colleges. This many D1 players go pro. And then he's like, so the percentage is like this percent.
That's like less than 1%.
And my answer was, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah.
You know, how is it gonna be? So like that's just how I've been. Right? Obviously, I didn't go pro. Like, don't have the genetics to do that. But it just gotta like trust yourself, man.
I agree.
Like people allow voices that they're not serving them. They allow those voices in, and they allow that voice to be the direct what actually happens, rather than like trusting yourself so much and kind of being ignorant to what other people say, to a point where you either prove it to yourself or you prove it to them. You know, like you either prove to yourself that what they're saying is true, or you prove to them that what they said is not true. One of the two. I
love your vision. I love your energy. You bring a lot to the table. It's been fun to be a part of the last couple of weeks. I appreciate it. What's that? No, we don't have to go. I'm just going through my list of things that I want to say. And where I was going with next is like more to the strategic side of like the wildlife, because that's where you're a killer in the wildlife side. And I kind of want to save that for last, and because I know like you teach other companies how to do it. You told me on the phone that you'd help me, and that's just not our business model yet, but maybe sometime in the future. But you've helped out many other companies as well. Mm-hmm. And kind of tell us, like, do you take on clients? Do you help other businesses out? What's that going to look like in the future, do you think?
I've never really thought about that, man. I just like helping people.
Yeah.
I guess maybe. Like it's not something that like, it's not a goal that I have, so I'm not like putting a lot of thought into it. But I do like have a servant's attitude, and I do like to see the people around me be successful. And obviously there's like a limitation to time, but I help a lot of people I've never even met face to face before. Like,
for sure.
Just like
that's one of the reasons that we have you on here too, is to get your face out there, because you're a stud.
You're too kind, Jonas. Like it's really easy to do stuff like that. It doesn't take a lot for me to like spend this hour that we're spending here together to like help you get your podcast off the ground and get this going. It doesn't take a lot. My hope is that like I bring a little bit of value just for like one person.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and like being okay with that, like the whole process, like I love it. So it's really easy for me to do that, but like I'm not going to do it to serve myself. Like I'm very much I do things for other people. And I think that's, people are selfish nowadays sometimes, and I get it. Like there's a lot going on, but if I died tomorrow, I want people to think I'm a good dude.
For sure. And you definitely are. And I think you have a great voice for a podcast too. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My wife thinks I mumble too much, which is definitely true because my brain's going faster than my mouth can keep up. But yeah, man, I just appreciate you having me on. I feel really honored that you even asked me. I still don't think I got my shit figured out, but yeah, I hope people see some value in this. And like, if you want to have me on again, feel free. And I know you got a lot cooler dudes out there that are in the pipeline. So
when you get off of here, be like, dang, you're going to think about 50 other things that you wish you would have talked about, right?
I wasn't sure what to expect, so I'm just looking forward to really seeing what you do with this, man. Like you're a special guy, and you think a lot bigger than a lot of other people do, and like that alone will get you like a super long ways. So
yeah, I appreciate it.
So I'll be around you.
When you go back to the wildlife thing, and I know you got into wildlife because you want to get through the 6 months of winter, right? Especially for us Midwest guys, it's a struggle up here. Mm-hmm. What would be the first steps of learning the wildlife thing? Like, where would you go? You know, like obviously you reach out to you, but if they just want to learn, like where could you go learn, or what would you tell that guy who is like just thinking about getting into wildlife? Where would you send him? What would you tell him to do?
That's a fantastic question. So when I think about that, I think about a couple different things. One, to make it real simple, like reach out to the wildlife operators in your area, like find the best one, and then just cultivate a relationship with them and see if it's something you actually do want to do. Because wildlife is really hard. Like you can spend a lot of time trying to learn it and still like suck at it. So like getting around somebody that's doing it, for me was the easiest way for me to learn. And then from that, went to some courses with the National Wildlife Control Operators Association, which is probably the greatest source of learning material in the pest and wildlife industry that I've really like could learn from. Like is like the experiences are from operators, not from scientists. So it's really easy to take what's being said and apply it in the field, rather than take something in an experiment and try to apply that in the field. So it's like that organization is a lot smaller than National Pest Management Association, but the training programs they put together they're top notch. The rodent program, the rodent and zoonotic training, like for pest control guys, like those two make so much sense, and it's a really good starting point where you don't have to dive into the ladders and the bats and the addicts and all that. You can just start with the crap you're already doing and just make it safer for you and add a little bit more quality animal proofing or exclusion, because there's a lot of really bad exclusion that pest companies do out there.
Right.
So it's those two courses where I'd start, and every year NACOA has a training. I think this year they're in Myrtle Beach, but they have online trainings as well. The Facebook groups too, man, like just getting around somebody that's doing it and ask, like those groups, like you have like the best operators in the whole country, like all spending an hour a day like on there answering questions. Like that's a major resource if you use it.
Yep, absolutely. It was a good point you brought up. I'm glad I asked that question. If people wanted to reach out to you, Matt, where would you want them to reach out to you at? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably DMing me on Facebook or shoot me an email.
By the way, it's the longest email in the country. But
yeah, I'm talking to Kyle about shortening our. Oh man, it's so long. It gives me anxiety when I actually have to tell people my email address over the phone, because it's like 30 characters or something.
I was like, I had to go back and double check it 4 times.
So, yeah, man, it's that, like, DM me on Facebook or Matt at abracadabraenvironmental.com. Will probably be the best. There's an N in environmental, just so everyone knows. And yeah,
us pest control guys aren't too smart. If we're looking for you on Facebook to DM you, Matt, what's your last name? How do you spell it?
It's Eickman. E is in echo, I is in igloo, C is cat, K is kite, and then man, M-A-N.
Sweet. Cool, man. Well, I know you're a busy dude. We're busy too. And like I said, I can't thank you enough for being on here. It's been a pleasure to get to know you the past few weeks, and you're a stud and you're going to do big things, and I can't wait to be part of it with you.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate your kind words. Thanks again for having me on, dude.
Cool. Talk at you later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pest Control Millionaire. If you are not already subscribed, we would really like if you did that. And please leave us a glowing review on iTunes. For the first 8 weeks that we have this show launched, we are going to give away a $50 Amazon gift card every week to a random person who gives us a nice review on iTunes. That's how important it is to us. Also, we want you to be involved with the show. Please send any questions you have about entrepreneurship, how to grow your business, anything about the service industry to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. We will answer them on the show. We have the best guests in the service industry, so why not get their take on your problems? Thanks for listening again, and we'll see you in the next one.